What do you really offer to someone who almost has everything? Another contribution that I think in the years that I will be in this country would be just to be myself. And he said, you people bring the color to Europe. To introduce a lot of white acquaintances to Nigerian food, to Nigerian music. And I tell my story through that. So some challenges I've experienced during my stay here. So academically, I already mentioned the fact that coming from Nigeria and into my master's program, there was a little bit of knowledge gap. So that was one challenge that I had to do a lot of personal catching up in order to try to blend into the content of my master's program. And another challenge that I experienced, not just myself, was as part of the course I mentioned, we usually do class activities or there's usually group work that is part of your assessment. And one challenge was always trying to find group members. So for some of these people, they might already have been in the same bachelor's program together, so they have their group of friends. And when they come into the course, they pretty much know who they want to work with. And I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but as a black person, I and my other black brothers are usually always left alone to figure out who we'd work with. So I had cases where we had to form groups and you go to people and like, hey, I'd like to bring your group, and they're like, we are full already, and we still end up forming group as black people, either just Nigerians or Nigerians and maybe Indians a few times. But yeah, that was one challenge, trying to get into working groups with the actual white people, let me put it that way. So, another challenge we had academically was the examination pattern. So back home we're used to writing exams for 3 hours, engineering exams at least for about 2.5 hours to 3 hours. You do a lot of calculations and you have to do a lot of writing. But here exams are not longer than an hour. It's part of the regulations. You can't write an exam for more than an hour. And inside of that hour, you could still have up to 20-25 questions and you need to provide answers to all of them if you want to pass. The good thing there is that you're not expected to write long sentences. The answers to some of those questions might just be one word or one sentence, provided you know the answer. So that was also quite a challenge at the beginning to adjust the mindset that, okay, we would have a lot of time to deal with questions, think about the possible answers, maybe rack through your brain to remember what you studied. But inside of 1 hour, it's kind of a short time to do all of that and still try to get the answers to the questions you need. There was also the option that we do oral exams. Sometimes you do it as a person individually or you do it as a group. And up until now, the only form of oral examination I've ever done was probably IT defense or the defense of bachelor's thesis. So these were a few challenges academically that I experienced. And socially and culturally, I think they overlap at some point, but one of the common issues would be, first of all, the weather. Back home, it's really warm and nice. One outfit for almost every situation, or maybe during the rainy season where you just put on a simple sweater and you're fine. But out here in the winter, you have to go through layers and layers of outfits just to stay warm. And we also had the challenge with food. We're used to spicy food, savory food, a large number of varieties. But out here, there's a lot of bread and a lot of baked products, and they come basically primarily in two flavors. You have either sweet or salty. I mean, they have their own traditional meals that they make, but they're not really made for African palates or Nigerian palates, as I would speak personally for myself. So this was a challenge anyway. And yeah, as an African or as a Nigerian, we are generally loud people, very outgoing people. You could have random conversations in a 15 minutes bus ride or 15 minutes taxi ride. And coming to Germany, it's a society that thrives on privacy, if I put it that way. So you could leave your I have lived for 2 years and I don't know who my neighbors are. We don't say hi, we don't say hello. You can't really just knock on someone's door and like, hey, what's up, and all of that. Things we do casually back home. It's considered kind of rude to speak loudly on the train or the bus or to laugh and have conversation with your friends. So everyone is usually so quiet. You have your headphones on or you have your book. You don't speak to anyone unless you absolutely have to. And these are things that we are not used to back home. We are very communal, as I would say. So this was a challenge, or still is a challenge on some level, because it's difficult not to be able to speak to the people around you or interact on some levels. And even in certain social settings where you have a lot of people, you still have this situation where they kind of like form their small clusters, people they have known for years, and it's difficult, or it's a little bit of a challenge to penetrate those their circle of friendship or try to make new friends or acquaintances. So unfortunately, on some level, most of the relationships they have, it's like a give and take. So if they're transactional, so to say, not the bad kind of transaction, but yeah. So if there's nothing they want from you at the time, or there's nothing you want from them at the time, then that's just it. So this was a cultural challenge at the beginning, and I think it's kind of overlaps with social interactions with the people. So we end up finding a situation where we are still interacting with Nigerians or people from other African countries, and in the case of Berlin, most other foreigners, because it's not just an experience for black people, because a lot of other people from more warmer communal settings, like people from South America, people from even Europe, Spain, or Eastern Europeans, experience a little bit of this challenge with the German culture. So this was also a challenge and a difficulty up until now that I still experience in Germany. Okay, contributions that I have made or I could possibly make. It's a very thought-worthy question, because what do you really offer to someone who almost has everything? And as an immigrant who came here for studies, and particularly with the Nigerian case, most people leave because they're trying to, this is a case of looking for green pastures. And most of the challenges we have already been solved. So what exactly could we possibly offer them? But I would say from my experience, professionally, first of all, professionally, I mentioned earlier that at some point I would like to go home and offer some sort of transfer of knowledge and skills. But first of all, I also intend to work here professionally, gain some experience, and I intend to rise up to a position where I can also do the knowledge and skills transfer here in this country as well. So that would be one contribution I would make to the transfer of my knowledge and acquired skills here to this society and to younger professionals in the engineering fields who would come after me, and eventually do same back home. And generally, another contribution that I think in the years that I will be in this country would be just to be myself, to input the Nigerian and the African into Germany. I'll make a reference to one of the experiences I had when I first came. So during the language course, we're a group of young Nigerians anyway with all of these new experiences. And while we were on the language course, the only other activities we could do was roam around and sports. So on one occasion, we were coming back from football, and we're on the bus and we're talking loudly, and as you would expect, they were all staring at us weirdly because it's not something they do. And there was this man, he actually, I would guess he was a professor or a lecturer in the university in the city where we, because he had a big briefcase with a lot of paper, and he asked me, he started a conversation with me and he asked, "Where are you from?" And I told him we're from Nigeria, we're students who came here to study, and he was like, "Ah, that is nice. I like Africans. I like when I see young Africans." And he said, "You people bring the color to Europe. Like, you put in some color in Europe." And after 2 years and my experience, it kind of makes sense, because they live very private life, very individualistic lives. And so far it's been working for them. But unfortunately, it influences most black people as well. But in my personal space, I try to still be a Nigerian. I try to still be outgoing. I try to still bring color, light, and laughter to these people. It doesn't always work. Some people feel it's intruding, but some people eventually warm up to you and try to enjoy the experience of a different culture or a different background, as the case may be. And this offers an opportunity to change the stereotype, maybe change the narrative that they have about being a black person or about Africa, or something that was written and told to them by people who do not have an authentic African experience. And I think this works on some level, like at least in my church, we have a very international community. And after service or after mass, I'm Catholic, after mass, we usually have like a session where we have coffee and we chat. And initially, most people after church, they leave. But we usually stay, the black people stay, and the few other foreigners who stay, we have a conversation, and they get to ask us questions. How does it happen? How did you feel when you come? And we tell them our story, and it becomes really interesting, and you see that it kind of changes the perception they had based on stories they've had from people or what has been written down in books. And now they're having actual interactions with people who have these stories to tell, and it's not so bad. It's really interesting. I've had to introduce a lot of white acquaintances to Nigerian food, to Nigerian music, and I tell my story through that. So I'm hoping that, I would still be able to influence the narrative that most of them have about what it means to be a black person in Europe today. So. Okay, so apparently I failed 2 out of the 5 flag questions. So I'm not very good with flags. So I called this Poland, which is wrong. This is actually Austria, and this is Poland. And I said this was the flag for Germany. Embarrassing, because I live in Germany. Actually, this is the flag for Belgium, and then this is the German flag. Yay! So 3 out of 5 is pass mark, yeah? So I still get a consolation prize, yeah?
We'll think about it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Native.
My senator, my native with all the colors.
Yeah, and then they get to appreciate it, right?
And when I go to church and they're like, oh my God, you look so good. How much does it cost to make this? If I want to have something like that, I'm like, it's not a problem. If I'm going to Nigeria and you want it, I can get it easily done for you.
Yeah.